Hi everyone, welcome to HubShots episode 309. In this episode, we are going back to HubSpot Fundamentals. So what are the quick wins for new users, even existing ones to be honest, Craig? We're going to talk about marketing, sales, service fundamentals, and some key settings, but also where to start with AI tools. And then we're going to round it off with about getting enterprise features for a single seat. So what's our growth thought of the week, Craig?
I think it's worth explaining why we're doing this episode. Back to basics, we've talked about a few episodes ago and getting the foundations in place. Now, as we record this, Inbound, which is HubSpot's annual event in Boston, is just a week or so away. Always exciting, but possibly distracting because they announce a whole bunch of new stuff and there's tons of things to kind of distract us from the BAU, business as usual work. So what better time to just quickly remind listeners about the fundamentals? And why do we keep getting excited about this topic? We've been doing a lot of training with clients lately, and it seems to be often they've inherited HubSpot from someone else, or they're new to the team, they haven't used HubSpot before. Maybe they've used another business, but then, we're just getting up to speed with this portal. All it takes is a few training sessions. And so what we're going to go through today in this episode is actually some of the stuff that we talk in our paid training. And if you're interested, we've got the entire set of training decks available. There's a link in the show notes for that. You can get access to we've got, I think, 15 or 16 separate slide decks full of all of our training material. You've got access to that if you want it. And of course, the HubShots framework. If you're familiar with that, stages 1 and 2, they're all the fundamentals, getting the basics in place. So let's dive into it.
All right. Let's start with the new navigation menu. And even then it's changing since probably this screenshot's been in there, Craig. It's changed again. So I think one of the big things to be aware of, it seems to be organized in a way that's to do with workspaces, which is something new that's rolling out. Then we talk about CRM. So we talk about contacts, companies, lists, etc. Then we talk about all the marketing components. Then we talk about all the content components. Then we've got all the commerce components. Where we go into automations, reporting and data, and library has things like templates in it. So that's just, if you remember, once you get used to it, it kind of all makes sense. The one thing that I have seen people not utilizing is the bookmark feature. So if there's anything that you should be utilizing is what are the things that you click through most and use the bookmark feature.
I'm surprised that I've had almost no complaints about this. Normally when HubSpot changes something pretty significant, like the navigation, some of our clients are like, oh no, it's so confusing. I had to get used to it. I haven't heard anyone complain. I at first was a little bit hesitant. I thought, oh, hang on, this is going to cause issues. It hasn't. I think people have got used to it. Some of the things kind of got a bit tucked away. For example, target accounts. People were like, how do I get to target accounts now? That's available from the company's view. And then meetings is under the library menu. But you get used to it pretty quick. So overall, I think a good change.
That's right. And don't forget, at the end of the day, you can use the search bar at the top to find anything. So if you get lost, always use the search bar.
You know, before we get started, Ian, I actually want to just talk about default HubSpot properties. I think this is just an important topic to get away right at the start. It's so easy if you're in HubSpot to create new properties, especially the form builder. It's almost like it encourages you to create new properties. I wish we could lock just that down. But what I'm seeing a lot in the training sessions and even the consulting sessions we have with the clients is they're trying to clean up all these old legacy properties that were created by someone years ago. No one really knows what they're for now or why they were even created. You'll see, and a classic one is with forms, people creating their own forms, creating properties, and you have like 6 different country fields on a contact. It's like, who created this country field? Why is there another one? There's about 6 of them. So before you create any properties, this is one of the fundamentals of HubSpot. Before you create any properties at all, just check the default HubSpot ones. Chances are they've already got a property for it.
All right, onto our fundamentals. So I think these are all building blocks for your HubSpot journey. And we're going to talk about views because they are like the secret sauce for using HubSpot efficiently. And as they get better, you will notice the ability to do things faster is so much better. It runs across the product. So I think that's one of the things we're going to talk about. So what we're going to talk about, the 4 main things is filtering, making sure you can set your columns up correctly. You can actually save and clone views and share it because one of the best things about that is that it maintains the columns. So if you share that with somebody, they're looking at the same thing. And then how to share a view with somebody.
I think we've got a screenshot in the show notes which highlights the 4 areas, and they are kind of small. For example, that save button.
Yes.
A lot of people don't realize, I can save a view.
Correct.
And, when I save it, I can save it as another one just for me. Yep. Where do I edit the columns? I didn't realize. I think most people find the filters at the top, so they start to realize I can filter down. But then, they don't know how to add new columns and they don't know how to save or share. They're probably the key unlocks. Once we show people this, they're like, oh, wow, that's a major productivity enhancement. And if you're listening to this or watching this and you're saying, well, that's kind of obvious. Of course we do that. I'm like, that's great. But just realize you're not the norm. We go into a lot of portals. We see a lot of client portals. We often go in and find they've only got the default views. They've never created their own or saved their own view. So there is something here. Maybe it's the way HubSpot introduces it. I don't know what else they could do to kind of make it clearer. But if there's one takeaway you have from today's episode, it's learn how to use views and save them for your scenarios. You've got a tip here, though, about advanced filters, Ian.
Yes. And this is probably more to do coming from lists, Craig, where if you're on that page where you can see your list and it has the list name and then it has the number in that list, if you click that number, it actually opens up a view using that list as a filter. So that's a really quick way to just quickly see it and then save the view. And it's something I just accidentally stumbled upon and I thought, oh, this is fantastic. So I use it all the time now. So just think about how you can utilize that in a quick, efficient manner. And even just where you save your views, like sliding those little tabs is how important you want to save them. That's a really good way to do it.
I think often we'll find that marketing teams have built out nice segmented lists already.
Yes.
And so the quick tip here is, well, from a view, you don't have to know how to create lists or create them yourself. You can actually just from a view say, I'll pull from a list, because chances are marketing has already created a list with the segment you need. So handy feature there. By the way, for setting up columns, there's hundreds of properties and columns you could add in your views. We've created a few quick videos for marketing, for example. I've got a video you can have a look at later on. We've got one for sales as well. And then for sharing. What's the typical use for sharing you find with your clients, Ian?
A lot of it is to do when teams are just looking to make sure everybody's on the same page. Practical example is you might have a contact view of all the unsubscribed contacts, or let's say the one that bounced. The bounced is the most common actually. And because they're hard bounced, they've left the business. So you can just say, hey, I just want everybody on the sales team, go to this one view, choose you as a contact owner and go and fix up and find out where these people have gone. It's a really efficient way to go through bounce contacts that you have, where everybody has access to the same view and you know it really quickly.
That's a great example.
The next thing, Craig, is viewing properties. And I don't think people are aware that they can view properties and see property history. So there are kind of two things here, right? First, we're going to view a single property. So let's take, for example, first name or maybe email, because that might have got changed when someone submitted a form. The other thing, when you're looking at the history, is actually understanding who changed it, when it got changed, and how it got changed. And that's a really big thing that you want to make sure, because these are like the forensic items inside HubSpot, where if you're thinking, why did that happen? You can actually go back and see that. So you can investigate the actual property. And then if you look at the property history and you search for that property, you can actually see how it got changed over time and what might have happened either side of that. So that's a really handy, useful thing to actually keep a note of.
If you're listening to this and think, wow, that's really obvious or that's really basic, that's great. I'm glad you know that. But we go in, we're doing the training sessions for people who've used HubSpot even for a while. And we'll say, you've only got this layout on the left-hand side that's only got about 10 or 12 properties. You realize there are lots of other properties. And like, I think I know where, I just can't find them. And, sometimes they'll create reports so that they can see these properties. And we go, you realize you can actually just go view all properties,
correct,
filter it down and get to them all. And then you can actually organize to have them put onto your left-hand sidebar separately. We won't go into that now, but like there's all these properties. They're like, what? I can see them all. So it's a bit of an unlock. So again, we call it fundamentals, but so many people don't seem to realize these things.
And Craig, I was going to say, I think the other thing that people probably forget is that if they can't see it, they think that they're the only ones who can't see it. And I think like if they actually told whoever their admin was, or if like they can add it for everybody to see and make a big difference to what people are seeing.
Yeah.
So keep a note of that and tell somebody, because that is going to make a massive difference to you as you move ahead using HubSpot. Be more efficient. How can I get this done faster? All right. What about marketing fundamentals, Craig?
Well, you're in the marketing team. Assuming you've got views working, then there's a few things you should be concentrating on straight away, which is making sure you're tracking everything. A lot of the fundamentals or basics in HubSpot and using it effectively are about making sure you're tracking everything. We'll talk about some things now for marketing, but then in next shot, we'll talk about some things for sales for tracking everything. Very first thing in marketing is you should make sure you've got the tracking script in place. If your website is built on HubSpot, you don't need to do this. But probably the most clients, if they're using WordPress or Shopify or another platform, make sure you insert the HubSpot tracking script onto your website. Why? So that then you can start getting proper attribution coming through. You can see the traffic coming through. There's traffic reports. You could get that with Google Analytics anyway. You've probably already got that. But once you've got the HubSpot tracking script, then you can start seeing, which channels are we getting leads from? When I get a new contact that comes in from the website, what channel? What did they view? What were the pages they were on? What did they do? How many times did they come back? That's super valuable. So make sure you've got the tracking script in place. And look, I'll say it again. If you're listening to this and going, of course we have the tracking script in place. I'm going, yep. The number of clients that we go into, they've got no visibility on what's going on their website and HubSpot. So make sure you get that in place.
I'll tell you. I'll give you a little example, Craig.
Yeah.
So someone had a tracking script on their site.
All right.
And I was going through talking to them, and I said, I can't see it running. Anyway, so I created a view and I added the column about the number of page views of all the recently created contacts. And I said, I'm pretty sure it's not working here because I can't see any contacts that have come in your system that have any average page views on that. And that was another verification that the code wasn't running, even though they thought they had it running, because I think they used the Oracle NetSuite website, and I think some update had happened. And so, it was really interesting because they're like, we did that. And I saw it because I went back a couple of months and I did see people had, multiple page views. But in the last 2 months, I hadn't seen anything. So I was like, okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's like, especially if you're not using HubSpot, always do a little sanity check at least every few months or when any updates happen to make sure that things are tracking.
Great tip. All right. Once the tracking script's in place, what else should they connect?
We should think about connecting all your advertising accounts, your Google Ads, Facebook, Meta accounts into HubSpot. Now, one of the things you might need to do is reconnect them over time. You will get notifications from HubSpot that you need to reconnect them. I would recommend connecting them with a user that is a company user. Don't get your agency to connect it as the primary user. Make sure you have somebody internally that is the primary user that's connected. Now, if you are going to use the tools inside HubSpot, you will need to connect with your user to access the tools or to create ads, etc., or create audiences. So that's important, but you can create that and connect multiple users after the initial connection.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Multiple people can connect ads into HubSpot and probably should. So don't be worried, if I connect Google Ads into HubSpot, will that bump out someone else if they've already connected? Will it cause issues? No, it won't. It actually just means you'll also have certain permissions that by default you wouldn't edit permissions, whereas normally someone else has connected it. You've only got view permissions. So yeah, but definitely get that in there and that adds to attribution.
Correct. And the other thing to do is make sure, which we didn't put in these notes here, Craig, was to make sure your lead syncing is also connected so you get the data into HubSpot. So this is across Meta, LinkedIn, and Google. It's anything where there's a lead form, which is on all platforms now, you want to make sure that data comes into HubSpot. Okay. And finally, what are the building blocks of HubSpot, Craig?
This is it. Now you start using lists. I know we referred to this earlier, but we often find people have only created a list or two in HubSpot and they're in the marketing team and They haven't quite got their head around this. We've got a whole episode from a couple of years ago, episode 280, which goes through the best practices for using lists. Check that out. And we do see sometimes they go in and they're like, oh, we've only got a few lists. Or they're only static lists. They haven't realized you can have active lists, which update automatically. And the great thing about HubSpot now is that they've got lists for deals and tickets as well as
and even orders, Craig.
And orders, yes, they do.
Yeah, orders are especially if you've got a shop connected to your site. The order lists have been fantastic to use.
Look, there's a bunch of other things we could talk about, personalization tokens, looking at the reports, lots of things, but we just tried to keep this to the absolute fundamentals when it comes to marketing. If
you are listing and you haven't downloaded the HubShots framework, I recommend that you go and do that just so you can work on stages 1 and 2 and follow along to this episode. All right, sales fundamentals, Craig. What is number 0 on this list?
Well, again, use views. If you're in sales, you're probably using contact views and also deal views. So we're not going to go through views again prior to the earlier sections, but when it comes to sales, it's all about tracking activity again. So what's the first thing we get salespeople to do, Ian?
First thing, make sure your email is connected into HubSpot and you've got inbox automation turned on. You've also got your calendar hooked in, which gives you the ability to create your calendar links. And the other little tip, make sure that you choose a domain that's not HubSpot, but your domain. That's one other thing to do. So make sure that you've got that little drop-down setting set.
For your calendar meeting link, that is.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, after you've connected your inbox, this is really important. You should set your NeverLog settings. What are NeverLog settings? They mean even now you've connected your inbox and then you send an email to someone and you can log it into HubSpot automatically. With NeverLog settings, it means for some people that you send it to, it'll never get logged into HubSpot. Why would you want to do that? Well, if it's something sensitive or something private, you probably don't want that getting logged into HubSpot. Now, depending on your settings, when you do send an email, you can say by default it will log or by default it won't. I have to override it. But a lot of sales reps have it on automatically. Definitely log everything I do into HubSpot. And that's actually pretty normal. But NeverLog settings just mean, make sure I don't accidentally log something that I shouldn't. Something sensitive. We often have NeverLog settings for our own domain. So if there's something internal that we're emailing about, we don't accidentally log it into HubSpot. And a typical example, I have my wife on our portal's NeverLog settings so that I don't, I'm sending stuff to my wife. I don't want that going into the HubSpot and the team seeing all of that. There'll be other things, accountants, doctors, maybe you're emailing them from your work account. You don't want that going into HubSpot, so you can set them up. Very easy to set up. This is actually one of the first things we show people with training. The reason this is fundamental is because all it takes is for someone to accidentally log something sensitive or private into HubSpot and it spooks the entire team.
Yes.
We've seen it. Someone sends an email to their manager complaining about, another employee or, performance issue or salary.
Yeah.
Turns up in HubSpot and then all confidence in the system is blown. So that's why we always talk about NeverLog settings. Get them in place, save yourself any embarrassment.
And 2 things I want to highlight there, Craig, is make sure there's a global setting to block for all users. So things like your project system, etc. You'll see in here. That one that I've got there, and there's one that says only me, which will also show up in this list, that's my mum's email address. And that only applies to me. So just be aware that there are these 2 kinds of things. You can do a global block or you can do an individual block. So 2 important things to be aware of. All right. And the third one is sales tools. So if you've got your inbox connected, you will have ability to utilize these sales tools within Gmail or Outlook. And that is your snippets and templates. So very important to do that. And that's covered in library. So things like using personalized tokens can be used in templates and snippets, which will save you lots of time. So a really simple example of this is when you are doing something internal, for example, and you need to notify somebody in accounts and you need to pass all the details that they might not necessarily see within the contact record. you can actually pull out things like their company number, their address, and you could say, oh, Craig, can you create an account for Ian? And here are all his details. And it'll just spit it out without you having to go and cut and paste properties that you already collected inside HubSpot.
There's a bunch of other things we could recommend: tasks, queues, sequences, playbooks. Save all them for later. Get those fundamentals in place. The only thing we will call out is the HubSpot mobile app, especially for sales reps. If they're on the move, in the car most of the time, driving around, the HubSpot mobile app is actually pretty good. It's getting better. It's pretty much more geared for sales, I would say, than other departments,
Correct.
although they are adding in dashboards and lots of things. But you've got a few quick tips for the mobile app, Ian.
Yes. The big thing is that people love is the card scanning. The other one is the having a view. So this comes back to views. Have a view that you can actually use on your mobile app, because they just go, I don't want to see all contacts, but I want to see particular contacts on the app. So having a view is really handy. Logging activities. I love the logging of activities, or even using the calling within the app and then being able to log that. The other thing that works really well, which I used the other day, was I actually got a call from somebody. When I stopped, I wanted to log that activity. So I just did that in the app, and I actually used the voice, the dictation, to log the activity with what I actually discussed. So it was really fresh. As soon as I stopped, I dictated it. It was like almost word for word, and then I saved it and then carried on my day. So I really enjoyed that. And then taking photos and adding them to a meeting or a task or a note quickly. Really useful for people like customers who have people on the road that maybe go to offices and they visit people in same building, but maybe different areas, just to make it really easy for them to recognize where they're going and who they're meeting, because sometimes they might not have a picture of that place or person. I think we had an example a long time ago of the food we ate, wasn't it, Craig?
Oh, maybe.
In a meeting note? I think so. All right. HubSpot Service Fundamentals. And there's only one thing here, Craig.
That's right. Look, we cut this right down. We were going to talk about surveys and all kinds of things, but it's just use views. We've got a big client. We're actually doing training with their customer success team, all on tickets. And really, we're just showing them how to use views. I think they've got 40, 50 customer service agents. And none of them know how to use views. They're doing all kinds of convoluted things to find their tickets, and they don't have layouts. And just by doing a bit of training and saying, oh, here's how to use views. Oh, and by the way, here's how you can lay out your left hand sidebar. Just so much more efficient. I don't want to harp on this too much, but people do fall into that shiny object syndrome where they're like, oh, there's this new AI feature for doing such and so. Oh, what's this new lead scoring or customer success scoring and all these kind of advanced things. We're like, you folks can't even work out how to get to a ticket quickly. Let's get that, and we'll unlock so much in terms of save time for you. Then you'll have lots more time to spend on the features. So just views. Service Hub, just get your views, make sure you're working them well.
Craig, I see a common thread in this episode is you need to be good at views.
You do. Really, it's 80% of efficiency, I feel.
Yeah.
And you notice we're not talking about automation.
Correct.
So many conversations, I feel, start with new prospects. They're like, oh, we want to automate all these procedures. I'm like, okay, just show me how you're using HubSpot currently. And they're just doing so much inefficient stuff.
Clicking around.
Yeah. And I can see why they're like, oh, they want to replace this with automation. I get it. I know why you want automation. You think that's the solution. But actually, the solution is not automation yet. It's actually just being really efficient with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So don't try and solve this inefficiency with automation. Solve it with just a bit of training. Then when we get that really efficient, what do you repeatedly do? Okay, we'll automate that stuff. So get views working first, get efficient, then you can talk about automation later.
All right. Now we're going to talk about the HubSpot settings that you need to make sure that you've got in your portal, right? The first one, and this is mainly for B2B, B2C, they're probably not going to worry about this, is to create and associate companies with contacts automatically based on their domain. And so that's a really good feature to have turned on because that'll do that automatically. And you can also exclude a domain from getting created with automatic association just below that as well. And the other one is to actually assign a company owner to a contact by default. This is another setting that can save you a lot of time especially if you are in a business and if you would organize it well, the company owner probably manages all the contacts within there. And this is a great setting to have turned on. And there is another one where it says fill contact details from emails with HubSpot AI. That's another great thing to do because the AI will go through people's email signatures and messages and figure out what it can take to fill out within HubSpot. And you'll see that. When we talked about looking at a property history, you will actually see if a property's been filled out by the HubSpot AI and when it happened. So very important.
And this all relates to that inbox automation setting that you highlighted earlier. When you connect your email, make sure you turn on inbox automation.
And then I'm going to give you another tip, Craig.
Yeah.
People that have signatures that are basically images stops the AI from actually reading it and filling out the information. So I think I'd rather have a simpler signature where the AI can read it and fill this out in CRM rather than have a fancy signature where it can't be read and filled out.
But surely that'll get solved soon
I'm sure
enough. It'll just read images.
Correct.
So
yeah.
You'll be able to tell all that. Just on that setting for assigned company owner to contact by default, you might think, why would we not have that ticked? Why isn't it ticked always? And the answer is sometimes, especially in big multinational companies or government departments, lots of departments, you have different divisions of a company and each division has a separate company owner. And so when a new contact comes in, it kind of normally gets associated with the first primary company. And so then if you had this setting on, it would set that company owner to the contact owner. Sometimes you don't want that. And so then in those scenarios, businesses like that, we turn this off because they then like to say, oh no, hang on, I'll just check. Oh no, it's not that division of Disney, it's another division. And then they manually set the company, the contact owner. There's reasons why it's not on by default, but for most companies, we just have it on.
All right. Tell us about lifecycle stage settings, Craig.
We didn't used to talk about lifecycle stages much, Ian.
No.
Especially not as setting up fundamentals. But we've added it in now because it tends to be a time saver. And let me explain what I mean by that. So we would find, we go into new portals and we go, everyone is either a lead or an opportunity or a customer. There was nothing in between, no MQL, no SQL, nothing for like, former customer or anything, because they weren't doing anything. But what we found is in those cases, if they had lots of contacts, they were actually using a lot of time, especially sales reps, like everything's a lead. And they weren't realizing, this hasn't been qualified, or marketing hasn't qualified and handed over to sales, and then sales hasn't qualified. And so it reduced the ability for sales reps to focus on their highest priority contacts. And so that's why we do talk about it pretty early now with clients. Get these settings in place and make sure that as contacts qualified, you update the lifecycle stage. Helps marketing be a lot more focused on the content they see, but especially for sales, helps them to be much more efficient on who they're prioritized to chat with.
All right, we're going to talk about connected apps and how HubSpot integrates with everything these days and some of the main integration parts. So we've firstly got native apps, and then you've got other apps where we talk about that might be built by others to do with syncing. So the pretty standard ones that we often see is Google Search Console, is something to do with your meetings like Zoom, Teams, Google Meet. Xero is another common one that we see often. And also WhatsApp and LinkedIn Sales Navigator being the others that we want to see. With Xero, so there are two Xero connectors. There's one actually built by HubSpot and there's one built by Xero. So just be aware, because I ran into this the other day when someone was confused because they had the two running and they didn't know which did what. Just be aware of what the Xero app does, because you might find very similar apps in the store and you might be confused. So have a look. The giveaway is usually what data gets synced or what the features are that take place. So often the HubSpot ones will sync data between apps, and it'll do that for many different objects, whereas the specific ones made, like the Xero one, I think you can create an invoice straight out of HubSpot using that. Am I correct?
I'm not exactly sure because we don't use it for creating Xero invoices from HubSpot. Where we often see it and how we use it ourselves is pulling invoices out of Xero back into HubSpot, because we like to see it against contacts and companies. And the reason we highlight Xero often is because, first of all, we'll chat with clients and they're like, oh, you know what would be really good is if we could get some financial data back into HubSpot. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that'd be good. And it was, oh, so what do you use? Oh, yeah, we use Xero. I'm like, oh, have you used the Xero app? And they're like, what? There's a Xero app? Yeah, there is. And again, there's just so many things to be across in HubSpot. It's a bit of a beast of a platform now. And so the whole purpose of today's episode is, the Xero one. And so you can just connect that in and just pull invoices back, and it'll log the invoices against the contact by default. It'll match that from Xero. But then you can also create some workflows that will show it against deals, even if you can be that specific, but normally against the company. And so the reason we use it is because if we're planning with clients or maybe a deal's going through, we often wait for the invoice to be paid before we start work. And so the delivery team, I don't want our delivery team going into Xero or having to chase accounts. It's all just there in HubSpot. And I think that's pretty common with a lot of businesses. And then the other thing that's really good about it, and you might think this is a little bit strange, but you can very easily compare deal amount, results with actual financial results, So when the sales team, oh yeah, we've got the pipeline, we closed $1 million last quarter. It's like, oh, hang on, I'm not seeing that in the invoices that have been synced back. Where's the discrepancy kind of thing? So it's a bit of a double check there as well.
And the other thing is you don't have to double handle data. So you can create a list of when they get to a particular deal stage to sync all of the contact data into Xero. So when the invoice gets done, you don't even have to go and cut and paste. All right, let's talk about some of the third-party ones that potentially people have is ones like Zapier and Make, Craig, where they want to push data to other platforms that might not directly connect with HubSpot.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to keep this in, because it's not really a fundamentals. If you're going out to Zapier, that's a bit more advanced. But you've got to be really careful because we've got projects at the moment where we're trying to clean up. They've connected Zapier in. It's causing all kinds of problems, especially from WooCommerce, e-commerce platforms. It's overriding data. And you've got to be really careful with it. It's almost too easy to connect into HubSpot and push data in. I just wanted to highlight that almost as a fundamental. Be very careful these external connectors. And of course, you can get custom integrations via HubSpot's beautiful API. We won't be covering that in the episode, though.
All right. Tell us about everything AI, Craig.
My love-hate relationship with AI. Look, there's good things in HubSpot. Like they've got so many tools. We've linked to their page. And I'm sure after Get Inbound, there's going to be plenty more AI. Be careful which ones you use. So anything, I've ranted about this before, anything that creates content, most of it's just slop. Creating blog posts via AI, it's just junk. But summarizing stuff is really useful. Content prompts, setting page titles and meta descriptions. I actually think it's pretty good at that.
Correct.
When you use it to create descriptions on workflows, it's pretty good at analyzing a workflow and giving a good description. And then the summarizing, which is available, I think, on pretty much every object. Like a ticket, I think, is a great example. Got that summarize. It looks at all the ticket activity and summarizes. It's really handy, beautiful. So there are some things with AI just in there which are great. And I just feel these are the default bits you can put into your normal behavior. It's like spell check. The things that are like spell check, I think, are great. Yep. Summarize this, check this, show me this. They're great. Where the things that create long-form content, why would you create a blog post on that? If someone wanted to know that, they just ask ChatGPT themselves. Why would they go to your blog post to see something AI generated? Just junk. That said, ideation, I think it can be really good at ideation, but I probably use the tools natively for that. I don't know if I'd actually do that within HubSpot. So pros and cons, you know how I rant about this stuff, but what's your thoughts, Ian?
I think it's getting better, Craig.
Mm-hmm.
As I use it in different parts of the systems, I think one thing HubSpot's done well is try and break it down to single use.
Oh, that's a good point.
Where people are utilizing rather than trying to do massive amounts of computation there. And I think, like you said, it's become really good. Like, I want to generate the title of the subject of the email. I want to generate the meta description. I want to summarize. Like one of the features, especially in B2B and sales, one of the key things that people have been loving is the summarizing the company before they have conversations with people that they're going to talk to. Massive benefit to them. So I think that's sped up things.
Excellent example.
Again, I think there've been single-use things that have actually done really well.
Totally agree. It should be a breeze to use these things, shouldn't it, Ian? Anyway, just finally on AI chatbots, which they've been trumpeting a bit lately, which confusingly on their website, they say you create a free AI chatbot, but then when you dig into it, it's actually the actual AI chatbot's really just a Service Hub Pro or above. But it's getting a lot of focus, and I think it actually could be good. So pay attention to that. We're not going to dive into it in this episode, but I just call that one out. I think the AI chatbots because you can actually point it at your website and say, look at my website. Correct. And kind of give answers on it. You could always do that with, I think you've been able to do that for ages with Knowledge Base, maybe. I'm not sure, but now you can add a whole bunch of other assets in.
Correct.
It's going to get better, and it's worth trying, I feel.
All right. What's the thought of the week, Craig?
All right. We're on the home stretch now. So we've looked at fundamentals, and once you've got the fundamentals in place, then you want to get a bit more advanced, and then you even get more advanced. You might want to use enterprise features. I think HubSpot's decision to allow single seat purchases at the enterprise level is fantastic. What this essentially means is that small businesses can get access to big business features. So HubSpot, I feel they've kind of been dividing over the last year or so, a lot of stuff in the basics and beginner. There's a lot of focus on, you can get started for $22 a month in Australia for the starter suite. Like it's fantastic. They do put some stuff in Pro, that's been getting stuff, but then enterprise is where all the big stuff's been happening. The sensitive data stuff, a lot of the lead scoring bits and things like that. They're pushing that out. And a couple of years ago, I would have been annoyed that everything's going into enterprise because you had to buy 10 seats, minimum of enterprise. They've changed that so you can get a single seat. I think that's such a good move. And it means you're just a solo operator, but you want enterprise features, you just buy a single seat. I think it's $220 a month for sales enterprise or something like that, Ian.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's cheap, but it's certainly very affordable. Whereas before you had to buy 10 seats and you weren't going to use 9 of them.
Correct.
Small businesses are getting unlocked with starter. Great starting price, tons of functionality in the starter. But if you want to go to enterprise, you can with a single seat. So the whole solopreneur business, which I know is kind of increasing in popularity, you can get still a big business features at the solopreneur level. I think it's great. I
think it's fantastic, Craig, because if you just think about the amount of time you're going to save, it just streamlines things massively, like massive benefit. All right. And the next thing, which we highlighted at the start, is Craig and his team have very nicely put together some HubSpot training decks, which he has given access to. So have a look at that link and go through it. These are paid training sessions that the Zen team run. And so it is a lot of value right there. So have a look.
You know why I'm happy to do this, Ian? For starters, making this available, I can almost guarantee no one will look at them. You provide information, no one looks at it. And so our model, like many others, is make information free, but charge for the implementation. So, we do run training sessions for businesses. We're quite expensive, but all the decks, all the materials, all that's there for free. So get access to it if you want it. By the way, what else should they get access to?
If there's one thing you do in this episode is get the HubShots framework. And always make sure you've got the latest one, because if you've got one of the older ones, just check the updates. We're always updating them, and actually fill it out, like use it, share it with the team. It is a Google Doc, which you can copy and share with the team and use it like a living document, because I think it gives you a great way forward and focuses you on what you can do next. So I encourage you to do that. And then once you've done that, I would like you to connect with Craig and myself on LinkedIn and let us know that you listened to the show and if you found this useful, and what did you find useful. Well, Craig, until next time.
Catch you later, Ian.